Hey there, welcome to Journeys of Empowerment, the podcast that's on a mission to spark agency in each and every one of us. I'm your host, Michiel Soetjiet-Rijt, and in this show, we'll be diving into real-life stories, personal challenges, and incredible transformations with inspiring role models for social impact. Whether you're navigating on your own journey or helping others on theirs, this space is for you. But before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to thank our first sponsor, Neotopia, for believing in our mission. Neotopia empowers leaders, both formal and informal, to influence positive behavior change through proven organizational behavior management. Their training and coaching help teams create lasting culture shifts and drive performance with positive reinforcement. For more info, check them out at neotopia.nl. I'm thrilled to introduce a remarkable guest whose story reflects the essence of this podcast, Nicolette Lazarus. Nicolette is the visionary solo founder of Womanship, a groundbreaking platform dedicated to creating safe spaces for women and empowering wellness professionals to thrive. After a high-profile corporate career, Nicolette took the bold leap into entrepreneurship, channeling her passion for well-being, community and social impact into a mission-driven startup. Her journey of resilience, adaptability and purpose resonates deeply with the heart of this podcast. With Womanship in its beta phase, Nicolette is at the cutting edge of innovation, bridging the gap between wellness professionals and the women they serve. Today, she'll share the challenges and rewards of transitioning from a corporate to entrepreneurship, the transformative power of community, and how technology can drive meaningful change in mission-driven ventures. Get ready for a healthy dose of energy and inspiration. Here we go. So here we go. You heard your introduction, Womanship. So tell us, Nicolette, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I would love to start with a thought-provoking question for you, because I right away know, and we had a little conversation before we started this recording. Womanship. Why is it not about you?
Oh, gosh. Wow, it's really weird. I find it hard putting myself front and center and realize that I need to do so because I am the face and the I guess, visionary, as you say, behind the brand. But really my passion is about helping other women. So it's about giving other women safe spaces where they can talk about things that they don't normally share. And it's about giving wellness professionals the ability to connect with them so they both thrive. So actually what I want to be doing is creating the space for them. So it's actually not about me.
So the second principle of Journeys of Empowerment is, although it starts with me, it's ultimately not about me. That is also for you applicable in Womanship, right?
Completely.
Cool. And is it a typical women thing, not wanting to be the center of attention?
I think the way that women are socialized when we are growing up are to be good girls, to behave, to not stand out too much. So I think part of it can come from that. And then as you go through society in terms of how women are treated in business, for example, you know, we're often spoken over in meetings, we're often downplayed, there's a glass ceiling. So I'm not saying whether it's true for all women, but I know often women have a problem being center of attention and putting themselves first. Yeah, it makes me think about two books I've read. One is Brave, Not Perfect. I don't know if you heard of the title, Brave, Not Perfect, from Reshma Shawnee. She is a accomplished tech entrepreneur. And one of the things what really struck my mind was that the difference between growing up as a boy or growing up as a girl, and they are going to do a party. The girl all dressed up, white dress, all dressed up,
the boy also in a smoking or tuxedo or suit or whatever and looks posh, and then they go play. And then they see a big field and they see trees and they're climbing in. And then all of a sudden, hey, the boy is climbing in the tree, and the girl get asked, okay, no, don't climb in the tree because otherwise your dress get dirty. And that's already in the upbringing from young age. The difference already starts there. That's what she pointed out in her book.
It's so true. Not just how we play, what we're given to play with, the toys that we're given, the colours. And then it starts to get even more complex when you think about the sexuality side of things, and girls being taught that they have to protect themselves when boys don't have to do that. It starts very early on when you ask a child to imagine a teacher or a doctor, and they imagine men in those roles. So society is very biased in terms of how we treat men and women.
Yeah, and do you believe in a completely unbiased world in the future?
Wow, I think we'll always have bias, and I think bias is a really interesting thing because often it's unconscious bias, and I think that makes it really difficult to actually prove that it exists. And I know as I was growing up, I changed my view on racism, having seen the experiment, the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment. I don't know whether you're aware of that one. And I saw that when I was at university. And it really made me think. It's by Jane Elliott.
Yeah, maybe it's good to explain also for the listeners what it's about.
So this was done many years ago in the US by a teacher who was teaching her class what it was like to be black, or in the civil rights times. And she divided her 7-8-year-olds into blue eyes and brown eyes. And they'd been together for almost a year, so they had very good relationships. But she basically came in one day and said the brown-eyed children are brighter than the blue-eyed children. And she divided the class on that day, so the brown-eyed children got better activities, better lunch breaks, better food, more praise, sat at the front of class. And in one day, when someone they respected told them this was the fact, it caused huge divisions. The next day she went in and said, actually, I got it wrong. It's the blue-eyed children who are brighter, and switched it round. And all of a sudden, you could see the tension developing. So for me, if your teachers, your peers, your religious leaders, your media tell you black, white, Hindu, Tutsi, Catholic is wrong for 16, 18 years of your life, it takes a lot to break out of that thinking. So I actually started to feel sorry for people who didn't have the capacity to break out of that thinking.
Whoa. Yeah.
And it also made me realize my own prejudice. So, for example, I'm a woman of color, and I have a prejudice against other people of color from certain countries. And that comes from being maybe 11 or 12, and my grandmother sitting me down after reading about an honor killing in the newspaper. And because I was being educated and taught to speak my mind, she said, never marry a man from Africa. And she grouped the whole country together, the whole nation together, or continent together, and said, because if you disagree with him, he'll chop you up into tiny pieces, put you into a barrel, and you'll never be seen of again. I never went out with a man from, quote, Africa.
Wow.
So if I can recognize my own prejudices, then hopefully that shows everybody that we have unconscious bias that is just part of the way that we've grown up and been socialized.
And hearing you say this, have you forgiven yourself for holding that prejudice or having that prejudice? Where are you in the process?
I think it's a learning experience. So it's easy looking back and seeing where I have been wrong in being prejudiced against people in many ways. So another example would be when I was working at Saatchi & Saatchi, a big advertising agency in the UK. I was one of the very few people of colour, certainly in a management or leadership position. And I had to work very hard for that. And I remember a young black graduate joined. And he wasn't in my group, and I was managing a large team. But I remember looking at him and thinking, don't mess it up for me. I've worked really hard. And I didn't reach out to help him in any way, shape or form. And he didn't last very long. And I look back now, and of course, I wish I could reach out and apologize to him.
Well, maybe you do now, right? In sort of way.
I don't even know the guy's name, but I just know I could have helped him. I could have been there as a support. And I was so worried about myself and what I'd worked to achieve that I didn't reach out to help him. And I think that's often the case with women in leadership positions. They've had to work so hard. They've had to break so many barriers to get to where they've got to. It can be very hard for them to actually help other women to climb up the ladder because of the difficulties that they've had.
Yeah, you mentioned it's amazing, but on the other hand, it's very admirable, highly admirable that you admit and you acknowledge and your self-reflection is on point, right? That's the starting point. You became aware of your own behavior. What helped you becoming aware? Did you know at that point you were deliberately not helping him, or was it afterwards?
It was afterwards in self-reflection.
What made you self-reflect? Because why? Why did you even think about that? And why is it even bothering you now?
So I think I went through a transformation in my own life. A little bit about my background, which I think will help put that into context. So I'm 56 years old. I grew up in the UK. We were the first family of colour in quite a well-to-do white neighbourhood. And a lot of people say, was that difficult in terms of growing up? There were challenges, but my parents were consummate professionals in ensuring that we fitted in and we were accepted. And I think we were given a lot of the messages immigrant children are often given. That's you have to work twice as hard to get half the opportunities. Never let the colour of your skin hold you back. Never try and stand out more than you already do, because we did stand out. And education is the way to progress. So I was the first child, which also comes with, I think, its own responsibilities. So I studied hard. I did what I was, I guess, meant to do. I got a degree. I got an MBA and always wanted to work in advertising, but could never get in. Got down to the last 2 or 3. Looking back, I would never have got in at that time through their front door recruitment policies. And that's just being very honest. It was very public school boy, who you knew. And I got in my late 20s into Saatchi & Saatchi through the back door as a freelancer.
Wow.
So spent the next 7-8 years running big pieces of international business for them, from Visa to Lexus. During that time, I also got married and divorced.
This is really fast. Married and divorced, and in between, how many years were you married?
So that's a difficult question. Okay. So we lived together for 8 years, and then we were married for 1.5 years before I left.
Okay.
Because he was actually quite narcissistic and controlling. And I guess he was a lot older than I was, and I grew up during that time as well. So I had everything that everybody wanted age 30. I had the big house. I actually didn't have to work, even though I had an amazing job. But I had somebody who would have locked me up in a tower and not have me, communicate with anybody else. And my family and I are very social. So went through a very difficult divorce and then ended up feeling very empty inside. So I realized I had no idea who I was. I was wearing a huge mask. I was everything for everybody else. I was a consummate people pleaser for my family. I did more than I needed to at work, but I was hollow inside. And so even though I had another job offer, I remember thinking in my mid-30s, I need to take a break. And I asked the company who I had a job offer from to wait 9 months, and I went traveling for 9 months on my own.
Wow. How did that feel?
Oh my gosh. Put it this way, it was before the days of self-help and finding yourself and knowing who you are. None of that was around. And I've never watched or read Julia Roberts in, was it Love, Eat, Pray? Eat, Love, Pray? Never watched that because I had my own amazing experience. So I didn't know I was going to find myself. And I met this guy on my travels in Australia. and changed my travel plans to do a mad 2-week road trip with him across the middle of the Australian outback from Cairns to Darwin. So this is before mobile phones, and I'd been communicating with people with internet cafes and mailing list. And then all of a sudden I went off-grid for 2 weeks. So it was hilarious when I came back, the messages that were there.
For you it was hilarious, but for the people, they were really worried, right?
My poor mother and father. It was like, has anybody heard from her? But anyway, so this guy, for some reason, had a way of tapping into me. And we'd have these amazing days traveling, stopping, seeing beautiful things, and then stop at these, one-shop, campsite, restaurant, whatever, in the night. And he would ask me a question about myself. Something I'd never thought about before, something I'd never tackled before or spoken to anybody about before. And it was this amazing thing of it was like peeling back an onion. Mm-hmm. Tears every single night.
Layer by layer
by layer. And basically he helped me see that I was a valid person. Mm. That, if I described myself to somebody else, that would be a good person. So why couldn't I see it in myself? That actually to stop looking externally for validation.
What is may I jump in? That makes me curious. What do you think is in the way for yourself to allowing to see that you're also okay and you have the reason to be here and to validate yourself? What was in the way?
I think partially my upbringing. I was always looking externally to fit in. I was always the only person of colour, even in work environments. I was so used to standing out. I never felt worthy. I still carry a lot of imposter syndrome with me and a lot of self-doubt. But he helped me see myself and start to listen to me, to listen to my gut feel, to listen to my emotions, to process things. And there's me before traveling and there's me after traveling. And they're two completely different people in so many ways. And he really, I have to thank him for sort of opening up me and the phase of life and the journey that I've been on since then.
Beautiful. And are you still in contact?
No.
With each other? All right.
It was this magical kind of...
Cool. It's amazing, right?
It was like...
It's a gift. It's a present.
It was like meeting a personal guru or a coach. I've never had a formal coach or anything or a mentor, but this person came into my life for 2 weeks. I thought I'd fallen madly in love with him at the end of 2 weeks, and he was like, no, I think it was just a 2-week road trip and it broke my heart.
Wow, that was a really hard cutoff, right?
Yeah, pretty tough, but he's given me the life I have now. He's given me me.
Beautiful. And imagine yourself in the car, the 20 years younger version of you, and listening to this beautiful story. What is the single piece of advice that you can give with all the knowledge now to the 20, 30 years younger you listening in the car? Because I can imagine you, the 20-year younger version of you, sounds beautiful. But how do you do that? So I have to wait till I meet some miracle person.
For me, I love being there for anybody younger, anybody who I can, or even older, who I can help on this journey. And it's about becoming comfortable with who you are. So I know that I will never get it right. I will always make mistakes, but I'm trying to be a good person. And it's about that listening to yourself and what you want and realizing that putting yourself first isn't selfish. And we're taught that that is. But putting yourself first is the only thing you can do to really be able to be a good partner, a good mother, a good father. By understanding yourself and your needs makes you better in everything. So it's take the mask off, become comfortable or more comfortable. I mean, I'm not comfortable with who I am, more comfortable with who you are. Listen to your gut. Your gut is the biggest truth factor, and women are never taught to develop that as a sense. But my gut is always right.
To develop that or to allow to listen to it?
I think allow to listen to it, but I can't say that everybody has it.
No, it's not enough. It's more like, okay, it's not an either or, I think. It works both ways, I think. But I think it's also in the allowing. I had a previous conversation with, I think, Farzan, and what really resonated also with him was the word allowing yourself to be. And I hear you say, I will never be right, and right, yada yada yada. And they're already dead. You are already right as you are, right? And you are becoming. And I love the openness and vulnerability within the first 20 minutes of this conversation. So thank you very much.
Can I just add, just one thing in terms of that? You were saying what advice I'd give people.
Yeah, of course.
I can honestly sit here and say I've never made a bad decision in my life.
Wow. That's a bold one.
Let me explain. I've made a lot that I've regretted, but I've never made a bad decision. And the reason being, I don't think we make decisions to sabotage ourselves. So you don't take a decision thinking it's going to go wrong. You take it with the information you have at the time and you make what you think is the right decision. If other information comes to light after that, you can't go back and say, I made a wrong decision, because that information wasn't there. I've made decisions where I wished I'd had more information, but I've never made a bad decision because I don't think I've made decisions to self-sabotage myself. So I think everybody should be a little bit kinder when we say we make mistakes. Yeah. We make decisions based on the information we have at that time.
Let's put this to the test. Shall we make sure that we come back to the point, because this is resonating and I really love to think about it before we come back to the point about self-sabotaging. Because I have to understand what you meant, and for me self-sabotage was really my default. So I'd say, but let's come back to that point before we start going deeper and deeper. And I love it. This is what Journeys of Empowered is all about, right? And womanship. To come back, it's not about you. Then what is it all about? And what are you trying to achieve? And on what beautiful mission are you?
Again, I think the easiest thing is telling you the story of how I got to where I got to now. So it started around 2017-18, sitting around a beautiful pool in Ibiza with 7 of my UK girlfriends. And we were all tapping ourselves on the back saying, look what we can achieve. Beautiful place. We've got through the marriages, the divorces, the illnesses, everything else. And then the conversation turned to what was happening with our minds and bodies in what I now know as perimenopause. Mm-hmm. And back then, I hadn't even heard the word. There's much more information around it now. But I remember it struck me as being crazy. I mean, menopause is like death. It's going to happen to a woman in one way, shape, or form. And yet, as theoretical, educated women of the world, we had no idea about what it really was. No education in school, no mentioning. I'd been turned away from my doctor. That happens a lot when I was showing the first symptoms. So cut to lockdown. And most of my work was freelance. And so I decided to do a deep dive into perimenopause because sitting at home, bored. And I got my partner to do it with me because he needed to know why I was about to kill him. Don't laugh. He needed to understand what I was going through because it's a lot. And, you do this huge voyage of discovery. And I think when I was researching, it was 35 symptoms. Now it's 45 plus. And all these symptoms that you're not aware of. So, yes, everybody's heard of the hot flashes, but, brain fog, anxiety, all these different things. But as a project, I realized I wanted to target the women who didn't really know what was happening to them. And from my marketing background, that's too difficult an audience to reach. So I put it down, and it was really funny discussing things with my partner and him being like, God, you women make it difficult for yourselves. So thanks, hun. And he's a strategist, so, he's very good at assimilating information. And he said something that I couldn't get out of my head. And he said that I can't believe that given the amount you women talk, you don't talk about the really important stuff. Pow. Given the amount you women talk, you don't talk about the really important stuff.
And do you agree?
Well, I was asking all my friends and they all nodded. And he said, and it's again this interesting mix between male and female brains and thinking. He said nodding isn't enough. He said you need to prove it. So I ended up doing research into how women worry. So over the past couple of years, 400 plus women have answered the survey. It's ongoing. The figures have remained surprisingly consistent. So it turns out that women are natural-born worriers. I think over 70-odd% had a worry or problem that stayed on their mind in the last week, over 40% in the last 24 hours. Mm. The list of things we're worrying about all falls into the same buckets. So if you take out war, I guess conflict, which we don't have much control over, although I think we could change that. Anyway, that's a different story. We might get back to that. The areas are career and finance, sex and relationships, motherhood and family, emotional well-being, physical well-being, aging and menopause, death and bereavement. I've forgotten one. Anyway. But what was really interesting was that only 29% of women felt they could be completely open and honest about the problem or worry they were going through, even to their closest friends, and even less about how they were feeling emotionally. And the reasons were all the same. Embarrassment, fear of judgment, fear of being the only one, fear of being used against you, fear of burdening or overburdening other women. Because as women, we're taught not to share our problems. And when you think the emotional score was low, if I'm feeling really low, I actually don't want to tell my mum or my best friend how I'm feeling because for some reason that transfers the worry to them. So actually we keep it to ourselves. But we're worrying about the same things. So for me, there was this light bulb moment that said, there are all these great schemes that are set out to get equity for women in, the workplace. Mm-hmm. But actually, we don't understand ourselves as women because we're not talking about the shared experiences that we have that make us women.
Where do you start?
Well, for me, this is womanship, and this is what I'm trying to do. Women feel better just by being able to share or talk about their stories. We don't need the solutions necessarily. And we often talk to people we don't know very well because it takes away the fear of judgment that we have. So when women start to actually have the confidence to talk in safe spaces, they realize they're not alone in their worries. Very rarely are they alone. So my mission is to create these safe spaces for women to be able to talk about the things that they're going through and realize they're not alone and get the support they need from the health and wellness professionals who are out there to help us thrive.
Beautiful. You're talking about safe spaces. And luckily, we're talking a lot about safe spaces now these days. So, and on the other hand, let's deconstruct safe space. So what is a safe space? What is it? And how to cultivate it? And then the third question, so what is it? And then how to cultivate it? And are you feeling safe right now here in the recording with me?
I'm feeling very safe. I'm feeling more comfortable than I thought I would because my imposter syndrome was kicking in just as we sat down, as I said. But I'm feeling much more comfortable than I thought I was. A safe space for me is a place where confidentiality is valued. Mm-hmm. It's a space where I'm a fan of connections. So not just the connections we make, for example, the connection we've made, but the connection of everything that's happened in our lives to make us the people that we are today. So a safe space comes with the ability not to judge other people. So if I'd have gone through exactly what you had gone through, then I might make the decisions that you make. But if I haven't, who am I to criticize it? It would be like somebody criticizing my life and the journey I make. So a safe space is where you can have somebody have a different perspective or point of view, but without challenging them on it to cause a rift. So, for example, I want, in the safe space conversations around a subject, I want 5 or 6 wellness professionals to jump in and answer a woman's question and come at it from different perspectives. Because what's right for one woman is not right for another one. And so I think what I want to do for women is make them aware of the number of different wellness opportunities there are to actually improve their situation without dictating what it should be. Mm-hmm. They should have freedom of choice based on who they are, their experience. A safe space is about validation. So often for women, we need to have validation that we're not the only one. An example for me was I did all this research on menopause, perimenopause. When I went into my own perimenopausal dip, so you can go into depression, I guess, like feelings, but I'd never been depressed, I guess. I didn't feel I could tell anybody. My partner would have been, what's wrong with the relationship? There was nothing wrong with my life or relationship. There was something wrong with me. And I didn't feel safe enough, even though I'd done the research, to share it with anyone. I got a text message from a friend of mine, and it was very simple, and it said, "Hey, Nick, I know I can say this to you because you won't think I'm going crazy, but do you ever wake up in the morning and think, what's the point?" Now, I wasn't going to jump out the open window, but I burst into tears because she summed up exactly how I was feeling. And knowing that someone else was feeling how I was feeling made me feel like I wasn't going crazy. And that was the start of me being able to claw out of it. So just the simple validation of another woman saying, I understand, I've been there, is huge for women. And it goes through so many examples. I had multiple miscarriages. And you're not meant to talk about a miscarriage as a woman before 12 weeks because, 12 weeks you're more likely to have a viable pregnancy. But by week 12, your whole body and mind has changed beyond compare. So, when I had my first miscarriage, at 12 weeks, I had to talk about it. And I was amazed at the number of women who I knew who, because I talked about it, said, "Oh, I had one 3 months ago," or "I had one 6 months ago." And because they knew I would understand how I was feeling, they then spoke to me about their miscarriage experience. And this is way before womanship was a thing. So again, it's that validation of coming together in rooms with other women who've gone through what you've gone through and realizing that unless we start speaking about things and recognizing it, we'll never change a society that is actually geared against women.
Wow. It's two words what comes up, and it's not specifically about women, but it's about shared humanity. It's about shared experience, shared humanity, and in that feeling, and I read it, so I borrowed this. It's not out of my original, but shared humanity, and by sharing the experience, although you are unique, and every experience is unique, you don't have to be alone, and you're not alone. That's the whole beautiful. And womanship is all about creating safe spaces in conversations, in events, in online, in offline. What are you heading to? Because it's becoming. Yeah.
So funnily enough, the line for womanship is share more, worry less.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Share more, worry less.
Yes.
Easier said than done.
But you have to have the safe spaces to enable women to feel comfortable to share.
Share more, worry less. Beautiful. You should start a podcast yourself, right?
Thinking about it, done some test recordings, but...
Oh, wow!
But as an entrepreneur, too many things to think about. So actually was calling it a truthcast.
Truthcast.
And that would be and I've done some test recordings, and basically getting women to tell their story anonymously. Because when women can tell a story anonymously, you hear the full story. And my God, the stories that you hear from everyday women of what they've gone through, And for me, other women hearing the stories of difficulties that they've gone through will make them feel less alone and give them the power to say somebody else has gone through that abusive relationship or that bad birth trauma or whatever else and come out the other side. And you never hear those experiences or the complete truth of those experiences because it's so difficult to share them. So yeah, that's hopefully coming up in the future.
No, it will. No, it's not a matter if, and it's not about a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I can imagine jiggling a lot of balls in the air at the same time. And now being a podcaster myself, now I feel a really imposter syndrome feeling now.
Oh, so not needed with you.
No, but it's true. I'm getting used to hear my own voice. I really don't like that. But on the other hand, I get the chance to speak to so many beautiful, amazing people with variety of backgrounds and opening up about their personal story and personal journey. So if I can help in any sort of way in future, because we have to structure and plan it, huh? Challenging, yes to everything, then I will be happy to support that, because really it makes me also think, do you know Esther Perel?
Yes.
And with the podcast, it's also a couple therapy anonymous. And the amount of depth and the amount of what you hear there, I can imagine also only women opening up about their experiences. It's the same kind of feeling like, wow. But I do have that same kind of feeling or problem or challenge or whatever. You feel seen, heard, and understood, right?
Just to see the resilience of everyday women. And, you know, when I ask most women whether they've got a story to share, they're like, I've got a book. You know, it's you think about the stories that women have kept to themselves and by sharing has just changed society. So the one I love to use is, you know, the Me Too movement. Until a few brave women risked everything and started talking about their experiences, all of a sudden the rest of the world was like, oh my gosh, or the female world was like, oh my gosh, that's happened to me multiple times. I can now talk about it. I can now share it. And it's changed how women view the advances of men. And, you know, it reflects to situations like in the UK, there's the Harrods boss, Mohammed El Fayed, and there's another celebrity who have been accused of indecent or inappropriate behaviour to women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the responses that you hear are men saying, and from women, why didn't they speak up before? And the problem is, if you think you're the only person who's been in that situation, are you really going to have the confidence to speak up? So I think it's a really horrible criticism on women.
The whole question is a criticism in itself, right? It's already judging.
It's already judging.
By the word, starting with the word why.
Yep. And, you know, until my biggest goal for Womanship is about achieving equity for women. Because until women start coming together in support of each other, then we will never get equity. And what's happened to date is we've been divided into groups. So either based on, you know, and our experiences are actually very different, more different than men's. So if you think about hormonally alone, easy periods, difficult ones, easy giving birth, difficult, easy menopause, difficult. So becoming a mother, not becoming a mother. So we divide into these groups. And my thing is that women have never spoken across what I call man-made borders about the things that make us women.
Man-made borders about that's for me, that's too fast. Man-made
borders. So we've never spoken across countries about the things that make us women. And there's more that bind us together through hormones alone. So there's more that I'm similar with another woman of another colour, religion, race in another, you know, the other side of the world than there are that separate us. But we've never spoken on that level. And until we start talking about our commonalities, we will never get the numbers we need to change this earth. and the earth needs female energy more than anything else. You know, how many women do you see doing drive-by shootings in the US or stabbings in the UK?
Never ever heard of.
In the governments of Hamas or Israel or, you know, any side of two conflicts. So as women, we have to support each other despite our differences. Because, you know, I don't think that if you sat down two women from opposite sides of any conflict with their 16-year-old sons and said, let's just give them a knife to, you know, kill each other now, I don't think any woman would let that happen because they gave birth to those children. I think, honestly, deep down, they would try and work something out. You know, you look at the number of men who leave their children or don't pay child support or whatever else. Women don't have that luxury, and we have I think, and I'm not a mother saying this, but I think we have that stronger bond. So if we come together in support of each other, we can get the numbers that we need to get people in power in corporations and in governments. And by doing that, I think that will benefit the whole world by bringing that female energy and balance in, because it's currently not in balance in terms of the decisions that are taken.
What will be the biggest amplifier to make that happen?
Women acting in womanship. And that's not joining the platform. It's about accepting and supporting other women through their careers, through their businesses, through, you know, just the women around them. Unless we support each other, we won't get equity because men haven't given it to us to date. I have a joke that my partner hates. So it's, how do you stop war?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Give men periods, pregnancy, and menopause to deal with.
I can imagine he doesn't like that that joke, right?
He's like, that's so sexist. I'm like, God, the amount of sexist jokes I've heard, and I only have one joke in my whole repertoire. But
yeah. All right. And to come to your partner, you are married?
But may as well been.
By heart.
18 years, yeah.
Tell me, he must be something special, right?
He is amazing. I mean, I came to the Netherlands to start a relationship with him just after I came back from traveling.
Yeah.
And it was like, what the hell? It was very the Alchemist style. What can go wrong? You know, the relationship doesn't work. I hate Amsterdam and I hate him. And I hate the job. And then I go back to a life I love. I would never have done that pre-traveling.
No.
And I actually went out with him. I didn't think it was going to last. It was for a bit of fun. And 18 years later, we're still having the most amazing fun to each other and look at each other saying, this wasn't meant to be the long term.
No. And what makes him so special?
I think... Oh gosh, so many things. I think the fact we can be so open and honest with each other. And I think the strongest thing is that we allow each other to be ourselves. So there's no compromise in that. It's not doing something for the other person just for the sake of it. We have to be ourselves first, even if it pisses the other person off. And we do a lot, but it makes it magical.
Is there a healthy balance in pissing each other off, or who is pissing who more off? This is an interesting...
I think it's equal. I think I do stuff that pisses him off.
Do you think he will agree if he hear this?
Yeah.
All right.
I think he would. I mean, the example this weekend is every year when we decorate the tree, I have to do one thing, and he has a visceral reaction to Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Oh, no.
Visceral. So every year I have to find a way of playing it when we're decorating the tree. So it's either, sending him out and putting it on his playlist 20 times so Spotify thinks it's him, or getting people to call and play it down the phone, or changing the ringtones. And this year I was really busy and forgotten, and then called a very good friend of mine, thank you, Mikhail, of ours. And he rocked up at the house, not only with a boombox, but had grabbed 6 random Armenian guys off the street to actually come into the house and sing it while he's sitting there.
No. That's really funny.
And he's like, I hate you.
I hate you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
My mum's like, why do you torture him? I don't know. It's just, we just have this thing. So, yeah.
That's really funny. It works already 18 years, right?
18 years.
And you told me in the pre-conversation we had also that he helped you in some sort of way to persevere in your dream from the corporate to the startup world, right? There is something.
It was his insight of, I can't believe that women don't talk about the things that they're all experiencing. It was his insight. He helped me with the research, and our lives have changed a lot. I used to have this great corporate career, and we earned a lot of money. And the last couple of years, I've been on an entrepreneurial journey, not earning any money. And, he helped me with the research. He really understands the problems or the issue that I'm trying to help solve. And he completely supports me. And, he doesn't ask any day, should you be doing this? I think you're doing the wrong thing. He is, my biggest supporter in, I think you're doing something that can really help change things. So, you go for it, even if it affects our holidays and, the fact we can't go for dinners anymore in the same way and buy the shit that we didn't actually need. His support, it's amazing. And so it's very much, womanship isn't about anti-men in any way.
No, I believe that right away. The way we met at the Walky Talky of the tech regatta.
Yes.
Women in tech regatta, and it was a beautiful walk. I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it was beautiful in the Vondelpark. And me being surrounded with, I think, 25, 30 women, and I was the only man. And I really enjoyed it, and your energy, and also, well, maybe I put you a little to the test. So like, okay, we were asked, come up with a question or a critical ask, but and you were asking that, right? And I was like, but what is your critical ask? So that's the starting point of us sitting here, right?
Yes.
Beautiful.
It was brilliant being asked by Melody to actually be one of the leaders on that walk. Amazing women, amazing conversations. And again, it's putting people in that comfort zone of being able to talk about things, being able to be vulnerable, and realizing that so often we're going through the same challenges and we're carrying so many more worries than people will ever see when they meet you. And sometimes just giving people the opportunity to be able to offload, in the events that I do, people end up leaving lighter. It's one of the questions, leaving lighter than when they arrive. And I want to just started a new series. So
yeah, maybe it's good to zoom into that, because this year, maybe it's good to zoom into what would you love to repeat for coming year that really resonated and that worked. If it's the right word, but I don't know, but you know what I mean. It really resonated with your audience. And what are you going to do with it? What was the magical, well, let's say I think it's all about the events in real life, right?
So it's partially about the events in real life.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a series of the A to Z of things women don't talk about. So just done 2 of those. So picked a really difficult one to start with, which was A for abortion. And just finished the B for burnout. In person and online. And gosh, the breakthroughs that you get, this is why I'm doing it. When you see the women react, so in a room, being able to talk about something that women never talk about is their abortion, their reasons for it, coming to terms with it. And seeing that happen, and I always have specialists in the room to act for psychological safety. So we had 2 psychologists and a holistic wellness professional. Mm-hmm. And, the way that women reacted to being able to tell their story and know they wouldn't be judged meant that they left lighter and with less worry. And it's also about me learning. So, there were some women who said that they'd had multiple abortions. And I remember sitting there and going, okay, I'm trying not to be judgmental here, but I don't want my face to go, 10 is a lot. And then they explain, if you come from an African village or you live in the middle of Russia, birth control isn't there for you. And all of a sudden it's like, gosh, this is what I mean. It's about learning about other women's experiences before we judge them.
And understand the context, right?
And understand the context. And go there, but for the grace of God, go I.
There is birth control afterwards.
There's birth control afterwards. It had never crossed my mind. So again, I thought I was very open-minded, and it helped me understand more. or sitting in burnout, the online sessions, and one of the amazing speakers, I always have amazing speakers, I mean, thank you all to the ladies who support these events, and one was talking about the connection between trauma and burnout, and saying that trauma is the cause for burnout, and I'd never thought about it before, but she was going through her own personal experience. And I had to go and get tissues and sort of subtly give them to two of the women in the room. And then afterwards, the pleasurable thing, which sounds weird, was to be able to take them outside with her just after the session. And it makes me emotional talking about it. Because they saw themselves in what she was talking about and realised they weren't alone. Sorry, it's because that's what womanship's about. And seeing them being able to make a step forward in their own feeling of burnout and stress and have the professional there to support them, just felt, that's what I want to do. So partially the events, taking a breath. And then I'm going to launch shortly online spaces to replicate this same thing so women can come together. And I call it holistic wellness. So I want it to cover all the things women are worrying about in one place, because worry leads to stress, stress leads to disease. It's a well-known proven fact.
Yeah, dis-ease.
Dis-ease. So I'm going to be covering the platform or the space will cover everything from career and finance to sex and relationships, so the 8 areas that I uncovered in my research. Yeah,
so that's what you mean by, sorry to jump in, but that's what you mean by holistic well-being is the eight.
It's the 8 areas. All right. Because if we're worrying about them, there are lots of great groups set up for motherhood or for menopause, and my thing is, life happens together. You can be going through menopause and have a death in the family, or go through career and finance issues and be trying to get pregnant. So for me, having them under one roof in separate spaces means you can look at your life and have validation for different things at the same time. And so they're discussion groups, private forums, you can ask anonymous questions, but importantly, the groups are moderated by health and wellness professionals, so not normal moderators. I want different health and wellness professionals moderating their areas of expertise so that women have alternatives of where to go to. There'll be a wellness directory, so you'll be able to find different wellness professionals, because often I don't think we know, what a somatic healer does or what an energy coach does. So it'll give you the opportunity to explore and find out about wellness modalities you may not know, and also a place for the wellness professionals to promote their events, because what I think is happening is there's so many wellness professionals and they're marketing to an echo chamber. They're mailing their same people. And for me, there's a beauty of saying, when I spoke to them, how many people will you convert? What percentage? And they're going, if we convert 5%, then that's going to be big. We know that's the biggest we'll convert. But imagine us bringing those people together. They're all looking for solutions and doing it in a very female way. So if we bring them together from a position of there is enough for everybody, then somebody in my list is going to see your service, somebody in their service is going to see somebody else's. And actually, if we build that community together, I think it will be beneficial and help women and wellness professionals thrive.
Absolutely agree with you. And the reason why is there's an extra factor. It's not about only available, affordable, accessible, but it's also meeting women where they are, right? Because everyone goes through different stages in life, different challenges, different needs, specific. So if you bundle it, it's like the aim with Journeys of Empowerment is to become the intersectional platform or movement for people empowerment and social impact. So the intersectionality, and that can be different. People empowerment is wide, and it's also with holistic well-being. It depends on context. It depends on stages of life. It depends on needs. It depends on also the way it's going to be delivered. Is it online or is it in real life? So I think it's a good idea.
It's one of those strange things. I had, a great corporate career. I loved it. I got to travel. I got to work with amazing top brands, top companies, big expense accounts back in the day. And it's really weird, and I don't want it to sound detrimental to my previous career, but when people say finding purpose, my gosh, I have this driver inside me that even when I fail and make mistakes, learning opportunities, as I've been told to call them in entrepreneurial life, which can be really tough, I wake up in the morning and this is still, I feel it now just talking to you. There's something in my chest, in my heart that just goes off and says, I have to see how far I can go with this. I know I'm not going to get it right first time every time, but there's no way I can think about doing anything else until I push this as far as I can push it. Regardless of how poor I am, regardless of what I can't do, there is this driver inside that says, you've got to see whether you can help make a difference with this. And, finding that sense of purpose, as I said, it's not about not having purpose when I was in corporate, but my God, this is completely different.
Did you have a different purpose then than you have now? And can you still remember purpose then when you were in a corporate life? Did you have a specific purpose or?
It was to do my job as, over-deliver, to get the next promotion.
Oh, yeah.
That was purpose.
Which was fine at the time, right?
Which was absolutely fine. I'm not criticizing that. I don't want to go back. And as I said, it wasn't, I don't make bad decisions. So it wasn't a bad decision, making those choices at the time. It's just saying this is a different feeling. And once you have that, if people said, come back into a great job and we'll offer you, this ridiculous salary, I'd have to say no, because what I'm doing now feels like I can make a difference, and it feels like it's my mission in life. It's hard to explain.
Beautiful. You don't have to. I feel that. I felt that the moment I asked you what is your critical ask a few weeks ago during the walk, right? I felt it right away. It's intrinsic. It's radiating. It's resonating. So it's highly needed. Which brings me back to the self-sabotage. Can it also be possible that self-sabotage is unconsciously and it's in your implicit memory without being conscious and knowing it? Yet it is your default.
I think we can sabotage ourselves. I think we do it all the time. Is sabotaging yourself and making a decision different things? So, my example would be, I got married knowing that it was probably to the wrong person. When I think back in the back of my head and, all the information that came afterwards, but I didn't make the decision to sabotage myself.
No, that's what you meant. Because when it comes to my personal journey is that I come to understand by reading, by resonating books, by understanding my own path, that although I'm pretty okay with and for a long time already with who I am, still underneath, I understand right now that there was a true feeling of not deserving to be here and to be alive, because I was given away as baby. That's the first time. Then I left parental home when I was 13. You don't do that out of luxury.
Yes.
And a lot happened in between, after adoption and before my 13th. And I have to decide that. And although in my heart I feel I've been given away with the best intentions for a better life, thank God it happened, still I've been given away. After that, it got reinforced by growing up in a not healthy environment where it made me feel like everything was conditional. So underneath my, I left parental home at 13, and then I had to understand that, I came to understand 3-4 decades later that although I'm okay with who I am and where I stand for and my accomplishments, but I also see a self-sabotaging default mode, because underneath, unconsciously, I was always questioning myself, are you allowed to be alive? Are you allowed to be here? And I didn't know that, but because that's the thing. And the pattern of self-sabotage was always, and I'm a survivor, so every time I lived high and low, but the high was for me the reason to self-sabotage. Because, but you don't deserve to be here. And so but it was unconscious because I didn't understand that, like, hey, I have everything I could wish for. And still, there is for some reason, I start self-sabotaging unhealthy coping mechanisms, really damaging ones. Not for now, maybe for a later podcast when I'm there to talk open about what are those coping mechanisms. But they were hurting my health and well-being severely. And come to understand that it was unconscious in my implicit memory, stored. The body keeps a score, Bessel van der Kolk, yes. Stored in my body. But I became aware about it, and it helped me to understand that, hey, Michiel, although you think you're pretty okay with yourself, underneath, there's still that question.
And I think that awareness and understanding are the two things I would go back to. Had you been aware and understood, you wouldn't have made those decisions.
Check.
So I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that doesn't come into it.
No.
But once you're aware, you look back and you would have made different decisions. And that's why I'm saying we don't deliberately make the decision to self-sabotage. Yes, those factors come in. And once you're aware of them, then you can start to do something to change things.
Beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree. I wouldn't dare to not agree with you.
Oh gosh, please do.
Oh gosh. All right. Hey, and since we're moving to the end of this episode, and I feel so also safe and blessed that we are having this conversation. And if you're now we're heading to 2025. 2 questions. What do you envision for 2025? So what do you dream for in 2025? Let's say we're sitting here a year later, also in December 2025. What would be the 1 or 2 things you're most proud of? And the other one is, what critical ask is related to those 1 or 2 specific goals? I didn't study this question. I don't know where it comes from, but I hope you understand my question. Yeah, okay.
So I think if I was sitting here in a year's time, or when I'm sitting here in a year's time, I want to be talking about the thriving online community that I have, where women feel safe to share and where I'm actually helping them worry less. And on the back end, that by doing that, I'm actually helping the wellness professionals reach new audiences. So that would be my goal, helping women worry less and being able to show it tangibly.
Yes.
And as I've said, that's good for society as a whole. So, men do come into it by the fact we will be better and better able to do other things. My critical ask, I think from my background, it's funny, I did a course with a great friend of mine who we do a course for women, which is how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing course to do. And I realise I've got a lot of blockers in asking for help. I think I have to do it all alone because it's from my background and having to show that you can do, that you're as good as other people. But I realised to really make this dream happen, I need to find a co-founder. I need to find somebody who is as passionate as I am about doing this because it's a big dream and it's a dream that needs help to come to life. So obviously I could say, yes, I need the financing. Yes, I'd love to have an angel to come on to help me, give me the space to let things happen so I can find the right co-founder and to give us a little more runway. But I think, everybody can ask for finance. It's if somebody sees a good idea, then hopefully I don't have to do things in the traditional way. There are all these business books that tell you what you should do and how you should do it. But what I find interesting is the ones that successful companies are the ones who haven't done it by the book all the time. The big companies we hear about didn't read a management book and work out how to do it.
They've written the book.
They wrote the book.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping by being authentic and being driven by my gut in what I think needs to be done will enable this to come to life, because it's a real tangible dream. And I think having somebody there to help make this what it could be, what it will be, is something that will help womanship move forward in a quicker, more sustainable way that can bring value to more women.
That's a good ask, I think. And to make it even a little bit more specific, you are the CCO, not to be mistaken by Chief Commercial Officer, but it's Chief
Connection Officer.
Beautiful. So Chief Connection Officer. And in your, you want to do everything right, but there's also what comes from within, where you're naturally born for and good at. So if you have to divide your responsibilities with your new to be found co-founder, what is his or her? Does it necessarily has to be a woman?
It doesn't have to be a woman.
All right, so that's the first question. Then
I think it will probably be a woman. I'm being very honest about that. I think it will probably be a woman for them to. Well, hey, I don't know. Let's see.
Okay, I wouldn't.
Let's forget that question.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. But feel free. It's interesting and okay. But if let's say
whoever it is,
what will she, they, them, he cover?
Okay, so I gave myself this jokey title of Chief Connection Officer when I first started, and I hadn't realised how important it would be.
Love it.
So, I realised that I'm a natural born connector. People, I think, warm to me. We were talking about how, we'll go into a room at a conference and people will know us and people will be surprised at how easy it is to make the conversations. I believe we have something very strong with womanship, and I think all the women I've spoken to buy into it. So I think I'm a natural salesperson, natural marketeer from my background.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking for somebody who is probably more operational.
Yeah.
Certainly more who loves the tech side.
So tech savvy.
Tech savvy. I spent a long time developing a tech platform that I had to drop because it just didn't do what I needed it to do, and that's nothing against the people who I was working with. It's just I had to make that decision, and that cost me a lot in energy and time. So I think having someone who actually can look at that side of things with me, and most of all, someone who loves the mission and we have fun working together, because, this for me is a dream to be able to pursue this. And I just hope that I can manage to pursue it. Financially, there will always be a way. We're always looking to make the money stretch so I can do this. But there's definitely, some great financial models on the back of it. So I believe truly that there is something here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been pursuing it for so long.
Let's end with the beautiful mission you're on, so people can really know womanship in a few words.
Well, sorry. The mission for me is really to be able to create these safe spaces so women can share more of the things that often worry us all, get community support and validation, and the advice and services from the experts they need.
Share more, worry less. Share more, worry less. Nicolette, thank you so much for this conversation. And I think, in my big dream, we will have this conversation a year later. And hopefully we will look back to your big dream coming to flourish.
Thank you so, so much for having me here. I've loved it.
Oh, and one more thing. A quarterly foundation allyship shout-out. This quarter, I'm honored to spotlight Fresh Table Foundation, a true pioneer in social impact. Fresh Table is changing the world one meal at a time, empowering former refugees, promoting sustainability and advancing social inclusion through its work. Their vision of an inclusive, equal and sustainable world aligns beautifully with the mission here at Journeys of Empowerment. Join Fresh Table's mission to make an impact. To learn more and support their groundbreaking initiatives, visit freshtablefoundation.nl today. Together we can make an impact and a difference, meal by meal.